Welcome, beautiful friends, to the Way of Mastery. We're going to wrap up lesson number 4 today, following the thread of desire. This will be almost a month we've played with this lesson. I know many of you have expressed great liberation of no longer being fearful of desire. How about that? All those things that people told us were bad, maybe not so bad. Anyway, he talked a lot in this lesson about sex and money.
Bad.
Because, yeah.
Bad.
Jay, you're on the wrong pew for that message, my friend. But of course, that's what we've all heard. We desire sex, we desire money. But of course, they tell us, oh, that's bad, it's the root of all evil, you shouldn't do that, that's sin, blah, 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 blah. But the energy of money is really connected to our infinite divine abundance. It's the symbol when we incarnated in this whole game of separation. We had to take what was common to us, abundance, and we had to seem to put it outside of ourselves and then set up all kinds of conditions to bring it back to us. And the same thing with sex. Sex is the coming together of divine masculine and feminine in our non-incarnated, separated state. That's one, it's whole. We don't need another being to agree with us for us to create. But here we had to split that creative capacity. So we set up this desire, but yet we're pissed off that they have to agree with us in order to get together and extend ourselves, create as we are. So we set up this whole crazy dynamic around money and around sex. So anyway, those are the biggies, but you each have your own list of deep, deep, dark ones or light ones or whatever else. So I hope you've been working with them. Is that not on? Let's try again. Oh, you have to press it again. Press harder. Okay, there we go. So it'll be just a minute. We're going to wrap up lesson 4 tonight. So next week will be the channeling of lesson number 5. So why did he spend a whole lesson on desire in particular? Because he's setting us up for lesson number 5. He's going to deliver the keys to the kingdom, as he calls them in this pathway, which are desire, which is the first one. So if we don't heal our conflict around desire, we can't even really get out of the box on an authentic spiritual path because we so limit the way Spirit can move through us. That Spirit can't even lead us home because we've already decided lots of energies home, creation and abundance, those are bad. I got to stay away from those. So we almost block our path before we even get started. Let's see if it works now. Okay, great. So following the thread of desire, we'll wrap up tonight. Cindy, will you get us the axioms, please?
I am created as my Father created me to be. I am free, and nothing sources my experience but me and each moment. Nothing has an effect on me whatsoever, save that which I choose to allow to affect me. I need do nothing. I do not live any ordinary moments. With each breath, my experiences are the stepping stones laid before me of God to guide me home. Therefore, I will bring awareness to each moment and allow it to teach me how to forgive, how to embrace, how to love, and therefore, how to fully live. The only relationship which holds any value at all is your relationship with God, your creative source.
So these are kind of the foundational principles that his pathway is built on. It's one of absolute, perfect, 100% self-responsibility for your experience. You can't blame. That's an ego game. Blaming someone else outside of you for what you feel. I think you've probably heard it's not the facts that's the problem. It's your interpretation of the facts that creates your suffering. So it's about bringing all those projections back and taking responsibility wholly. And when you do it H-O-L or H-O-L-E-Y, is that how you spell whole? No, H-O-L-E, when you do it that way, it will become H-O-L-Y, holy. Woo, here we go. So nothing can affect you that you don't allow to affect you. So a spouse being upset has no intrinsic ability to upset you unless you've already signed a codependent contract with them, which most of us have, because we entered into our relationships as special relationships. We were making substitutes this way for the only true love that is this way. I need do nothing. I don't know about you, but very few of us body minds really believe that we need do nothing. If we think we need to do something to become Christed or to wake up or to become what we are, we've already made a wrong assumption that we're actually separate from our Creator. And we're not. So if you think you have to do something to get back home, give up the idea that you need to get there and recognize maybe it's right here. Because the need to do something is always predicated on the fact that you're like not whole. There's lack or scarcity within your being. I do not live any ordinary moments. I don't know about you, but I don't know how often we sit on the shitter and say, wow, this is an extraordinary moment. But, I mean, I don't know if any of you ever contemplated the mystery that has to happen within your body for that experience to arise. I mean, and I don't know, there's lots of variation in that experience. You know, I'm making light, but my point is, He's asking us to be present in every moment with what's happening. Not in our mind thinking about our next meal, but actually present with what's happening. And those experiences are the pathway led before you. The pathway is not a bunch of nice, glorious, highfalutin thoughts. It's your moment-to-moment experience. So bring awareness to whatever it is you're doing. You can bring curiosity and innocence to anything. And if you look around, you'll see nothing but mystery. You truly won't be able to say what anything is or how it got here or what it is. And number 4 is kind of the bullet or the last nail in the coffin of the special relationship. The only relationship that holds any value at all. He doesn't say the most important one and your spouse is second on the list. He's saying this relationship with God is the only relationship that matters. The fact is we make lousy substitutes for this. We try and make idols this way. So he's not saying leave your spouse. He's not saying dish your spouse. He's saying recognize your priority is right here. And in truth, if you get this in order, you'll be amazed at the miraculous healings that will happen this way. But you're not going to get to God through your partner waking up. You're not going to get to God through your partner getting a raise. You're not going to get to God through your partner, stopping drinking or whatever it is. Those are all distractions so that you don't actually look towards the source. So these are really important paths. And these they're beautiful concepts, but if you don't live them, what good are they? I mean, he's saying, turn your life towards the kingdom and start taking responsibility for what you're doing. Stop with all you're doing denying the truth of what you are. Get present with what life is and get right with your Creator. And let go of all the special relationships that you've created. That's good stuff. So here we go. Mark your favorite part. You ready? Yes. Maybe we'll just have you do this live for us one night. Yeah, great. So this is Jeshua channeling the Lord's Prayer in his native Aramaic. It is incredibly powerful stuff. This is as pure a vibrational love extension as probably comes. So you don't have to do anything. This is axiom number 2. You need do nothing. You don't even need to listen because it's going to make its way into your being anyway. You don't have to struggle. So just relax. Actually allow yourself to truly do nothing. Don't effort at anything.
Awun, the Boshmaya, Nita Kadash Shama, Tete Malkuda, Neve Sivinach, Akana, the Boshmaya, O Baraha, Haulan, Lachman, Zunkanan, Yamana, Boshwoklan, Halbain, Akana, Dapanan, Shwakin, El Hayabain. Ula talan el nisyan, el pasan membisha. But hal de lachim el kuda, uhaila, utish bhakta. La alam, amin, amen. Shmaya, Need Kadash Shema, Te Te Nakuda, Nehwe Sedina, Akanad Vashmaya, Ubaraha, Haulan Lachman, Sunkhan Yamana, Ashwoklan Habin, Aikana Taphanan, Shwakin Hayabin, Ula Talan Mission, El Pasan Isha, Hadraki Melkuta, Uhaila, Udishbota, La Allah, Amin, Amen.
I could feel in the room many minds go still because your mind can't understand it, so it just surrenders. And you allow the experience to be. And that's really what will happen in awakening or enlightenment. Your mind will surrender because it will know, I can't know anything in thought. It's beautiful. Okay, in this lesson, he uses the analogy of God as the ocean and we are waves. And he's talking about how the ocean is expressing itself through waves. The waves are, of course, never separate. But he talks about we get so identified with a little tiny wisp of foam on the tip of the wave that we forget we're connected to the whole thing. And that allowing, because the desire that's arising up, like for instance the desire for abundance, that's rising up from the base of the ocean because that is the very nature of Christ. That is the very nature of God. It's the very nature of creation. I mean, look, we didn't just do one solar system or one cosmos, or one universe. They're all over the place. I mean, one after another, after another, after another. Blades of grass, it's not like we just did 5 and said, ooh, we're done. The point is, that a desire for abundance is rising from the very depth of your own Christed being. Your soul going, I'm not going to play small anymore. I'm not going to play with, I'm too big to suffer. I'm too big to struggle. So he's talking about allowing that desire to start to well up within our being. He makes a point here. He's not saying that we should act on every desire that comes into our consciousness. He's just asking us to open to it and no longer cut off the hose, but to allow it to come. You still make choice about whether you follow a desire or not, but what if there's one that's been resting, waiting for your welcome, that you've just never opened to? The purpose for your life, the grandest expression of love through you. What if you've been so scared of desire that you haven't let that in? So anyway, he starts this lesson, this section that we're in, and we're about 2/3 through it. Why fear such desire? And of course, he just finished a discourse about sex and money. So he's talking about specifics and in general.
Why fear such a desire? It's too overwhelming. I don't know how I'll be accepted. Who cares how you'll be accepted? What matters is how you accept yourself. What if by feeling that desire, New pictures began to come to you, and suddenly you realized, what I want to do is join the Peace Corps, as an example. Perhaps it is the case that that very decision to go and put yourself in a solar system where you can spin as your own planet, where you can go and be in the Peace Corps, could be the very pathway through which you learn to receive the great joy of letting your love out into the world. But if you fear desire, how can you ever know these things? Oh, when I get in touch with my heart, when I allow myself to feel, what comes up by asking that question? I want to have so much wealth. Oh, and I see the thought that says, oh no, wealth is bad. But what I want to do is, I want to be able to go to every hungry child on the planet and feed them. That's why I want to be wealthy.
So who has felt the desire welling up within you and felt overwhelmed by it, like you couldn't control it? I don't know, when you were young, if you were a man, there was a whole lot of that sexual energy moving through you. But we feared loss of control, and that's the ego's kind of whole thing, is have to be in control. Jesus calls it the gnat yelling at the universe, thinking that the body-mind can control anything. I mean, we don't even control our own heartbeats. What is it that we can't even control our own thoughts. I mean, try and stop them without help. See if you can control them. But he calls this next line the worst use of consciousness that we ever created. Who cares how you'll be accepted? When we have put so much value on our perception of other people's perceptions. Now, let me be clear, perception is nowhere near reality. So your perceptions aren't real, neither are their perceptions are real. But just look at how much you invest in making sure that you believe that the other people are understanding exactly what you intend to say. I mean, it's like a sentence goes into an hour because you're trying to clarify it only for your own purpose. Are you willing to just say your truth? And if people understand that, great. If not, big deal. He's saying, forget what everybody else does. How do you accept yourself? And this is one that scares the ego to death because we've made so many secret agreements this way that if we start breaking them, oh my God, I won't have any friends, I'm going to lose my house, whatever. And you might, but big deal. You'll probably be a whole lot happier for cutting all those cords. So self-acceptance is really an absolute criteria on the spiritual path. Because if you're not prepared to love yourself, you're not going to let God's love come in that says God loves you perfectly. I mean, that's really it, is coming to love ourselves. And I don't mean you start here, but then all of a sudden that becomes everybody as God loves us. So desire doesn't always just come in a thought, I want this. Sometimes it comes as imagery. And I can tell you on my path, when I finally opened up to it, I got much more that were visions than actual words or discourses. Because, of course, a picture's worth 1,000 words. It says much more because you engage with it, and it typically comes with a whole lot of feeling. So if you haven't been getting it, you might ask the Spirit, will you please start showing it to me in picture? And if you can't do it during the day, ask to be shown them at night. You'll come to be able, even in your waking consciousness like this, to see a vision within your consciousness that won't preclude this. It's kind of like those airplanes that have the heads-up display. You'll kind of see a multi-dimensional picture. And of course, he's not advocating everybody go do the Peace Corps, but whatever it is for you. And people say, oh gosh, I'll have to sit up in front of a room and talk to people. You know, the light might express through you in a completely different way. And whatever way it expresses through you is perfect. I mean, this world would suck if everybody was in a chair. Who would be there to watch? We'd all be sitting there by ourselves in an empty room. So he's talking here about really holding your light up high, and how love will express through you is unique to you. And love is diverse. Look at nature. Love's not trying to create sameness so that we all look the same and say the same and speak the same and do the same. I mean, we still need farmers. So let love express itself naturally through you. God's will is perfect happiness for you. So he's not going to give you a job where you're going to go and suffer. That's what the ego would say, oh, I don't want to open up to God's will because I might have to go do something I don't want to do. Well, how would a loving God be like, oh, you got to go suffer some more? That's our ego God. That's the one we think is out there. But one of the really important things he does in this pathway, and he had me do it every time I read A Course in Miracles, is every time there was a question, I had to stop and actually interact with the question rather than just reading it, letting the ego say the right answer and moving past it. Those questions are really opening the door to the depth of your consciousness and watch what comes up instead of trying to manage what comes up. Be really open and let it come, let it come, let it come. Just because you see nasty stuff in your consciousness doesn't mean you're nasty. We're not what's in there, but nonetheless, be with the questions. Use a question as a contemplation. Oh, this is how I might have answered it based on my past, but what if I opened and let love show me an answer, show me something that I haven't thought about? So stop with questions. Don't assume you know the answer. He's trying to get you to probe your consciousness, not just to give the right spiritual answer, which every one of us in this room can do, and you just read right past it. So your opportunity for inquiry, your opportunity to look within, you pass over. So when I was working the Course in Miracles, I mean, there's some of those lessons had like 10 questions in it. So it took a while for me to get through there. And I wouldn't move on until he felt like, and he would tell me, you've adequately explored all your opportunities here, and then we would move on.
Could it not be that the desire to feed the world is God's desire to speak through you, to use you in a way that affects transformation upon your planet? Can you see then that by blocking the feeling of desire, you might just be blocking yourself from hearing what you keep praying for over and over? Father, reveal thy purpose to me. You feel the desire and you go, oops, first, excuse me, Father, I have to get rid of this desire. Desire in the heart is where you will discover the phone line that links you to the will of God that would be expressed through you. And if you don't trust desire, you are literally saying that you have decided not to trust your Creator. Not something to just be brushed aside. In healing the conflict around desire, now that you know what it truly is, learn to be patient with yourself.
So God's desire for you is perfect happiness. When you get on point with what your soul, so to speak, wants to express, you're going to be in a great place of peace and joy and fulfillment. You have no idea how being in that state, even egoically, contributes to humanity's consciousness being healed. Joy, 10 minutes spent in joy can wipe out 10 years of negative thought. It's really about following that and letting that joy be your contribution to the whole, rather than your question, well, what about me, God? What about me? I mean, that's not really helping the whole. So helping yourself, helping your own joy is contributing. That's the greatest contribution you can make to the whole, is your own happiness and your own joy. Oftentimes we learn we're supposed to set our joy aside and sacrifice for everyone else. Well, that's right. It is bullshit, but we've done it over and over and over and over and over. Stop, because you're not only hurting you, you're just putting another negative, rejective thing in all of human consciousness. So follow your heart. Allow it to speak to you. Open. This point he makes down here, if you don't trust desire, you are literally saying that you've decided not to trust your Creator. And every one of us will go, oh, no, I trust my Creator. Bullshit. Look deep in your consciousness and you will find example after example after example, and they'll run deeper and darker than you can ever imagine. I mean, part of the whole dream of separation was we had to fully adopt a disbelief that we were one with the Creator. And we even, and many of us carry around this belief that, oh my God, bad things happen because it's God's will. That's frigging crazy. But we think that. So who wants to be one with God when He gave your cousin cancer? Or it's God's will that there's a big-ass tsunami. I'm pointing at ways that you're in deep distrust, but the ego is so good at disassociating it that you don't recognize, oh my gosh, I have got a cosmic-sized beef with the Creator. So really be willing to explore this, because that won't heal itself. God loves you perfectly. The block is not on God's side of the phone. He's like on the phone waiting for your call. It's a matter of we don't trust. And we don't trust, we don't ask. We think we have to fix everything before we reach out for help, rather than saying, shit, I'm in the shitter, I need some help, please. And I'd appreciate it now. We figure we're in this belief that we've screwed it up and we got to get holy again before we can experience our union with God. And that's really not the way it goes. So really explore this question. That's one of the ones that can really accelerate your path, is really exploring all the ways you distrust God. And I'll give you an example. When Jeshua walked the planet, he said, be like the birds in the sky and the lilies in the field. They don't toil and spin. They don't worry about their next meal. They don't worry about anything else. Creator gives them all that they need. And Jesus said, are you too not greater? Not many of us are prepared to go all in and say, okay, God, I'll put all responsibility on you to provide everything. We want insurance. We want assurances. We want to know exactly how it is. And all those are fear-based, lack of trust responses. Now, the ego will say something crazy like you've got to make this leap of faith off of a cliff in the face of a bunch of fear. That's not a real helpful way to go about it. It's welcome the fear up and take it to spirit and be with it and let it get processed out of your system. Because when you really do go all in with God, you'll make that movement in peace and certainty. That's when you're ready. If you're in fear about it, you're not ready. You've got plenty more healing to do, so work on the healing. And be patient with yourself. I mean, we've been suppressing desire for a very long time. Even if you believe in reincarnation or not, in this lifetime, we've been repressing it since we were playing and our parents told us to put our dress down or whatever. I mean, we've been suppressing the natural movement of our creative expression since before you even were conscious that you were conscious. So it takes time to uncover all those blocks and let love come through. He's going to give us an exercise in just a few moments. You may have to do that exercise multiple times to really open the communication lines up. Because we don't want to talk to God because we think He's pissed off at us. We do. We think He's mad at us for things we've done or things we've said. And of course, that's not the case. But if you're incarnated here, we hold all kinds of crazy Christian beliefs buried in our consciousness. And it's about getting in the cellar of that and bringing all that stuff up so you're no longer bound by what's unconscious to you.
By way of a second exercise, and we would suggest that you create a structure by which this can be practiced that fits into your own life. Again, it need not take more than 5, 10, or 15 minutes initially, perhaps 3 or 4 times a week. Eventually, you'll be doing this all the time because you'll be creating deliberately. For just 10 or 15 minutes, set aside your world. Remember that you need do nothing, and so the world can wait. Relax the body and close the eyes. And it can be of great benefit to let the breath become very deep and rhythmic. It relaxes the nervous system and seduces the controller within your mind, the critic that decides what thoughts are okay and which ones aren't. By the way, the critic is never something you created. It is something you let live in your mind that was made up by a lot of other fearful minds called parents and teachers. As you relax the body and the mind, ask yourself, what do I truly want? And observe the images that come without judgment. Notice the feelings in the body and allow this to go for just a minute or 2. Then pause, open the eyes, and write down all that you can remember.
So this is my little Way of Mastery notebook that I used and you still use. And Jeshua has a list of study suggestions on how to kind of walk this pathway. He talks about having a notebook that you use for nothing for this and a pen that you use for nothing but this. But he's asking us to walk the pathway he walked. He's given us the exercises that he walked to enlightenment. I think it's worth giving them a try. I mean, you know, on the enlightenment scale in humanity, I don't think many argue that he's kind of at the top of the heap. So if he's sharing with us, here's the exact way I went about this, I wonder if we might want to really give it a go, as he suggested. You'd be amazing how many people read this. So here's the expression of God itself saying, you want to be like me, you want to wake up, okay, here's the way. and we read it and go, wow, isn't that nice? That's just so cool. I feel so peaceful when I listen to these channelings. But we don't actually do the work to clean up our consciousness. We don't actually do the work to unclog the phone line to the voice for God so that we can hear guidance clearly and distinctly. So actually do the exercises. If you're not doing the exercises, just recognize you're like window shopping with the truth. You're standing on the sidewalk, you're looking through and going, wow, that looks really cool. Someday I'm going to go in there and buy that Christed outfit. But if you truly want to wake up, and if you're in this room, your soul wants to wake up. I'd appreciate if your ego would get on board and actually do the exercises. And if you're not, really look at yourself. Go, wow, I can see I like the idea of awakening, but I don't actually like the work of cleaning my consciousness up. So be honest with yourself. If you're not, you don't necessarily need to beat yourself up about it, but just ask yourself, do I really want this or not? Or am I just caught up in the loop of spiritual ego? So I can say a bunch of nice spiritual terms and I can know all this theology intellectually. I just love to hear people talk about silence and stillness. It's the biggest joke because thoughts and concepts about silence and stillness have nothing to do with true silence. Nothing. But we substitute the experience of actually resting in silence because we just want to talk about it. And we want to tell everybody else about it. So just look authentically. And if you have an opportunity to actually do the lessons, well, do them. He says it's only taking 5, 10, 15 minutes. I mean, the benefit that you're going to get out of this pathway is an eternal peace. He's not asking you to sacrifice much. The lesson in the first lesson was 5 minutes of abiding as Christ. So anyway, there you go. So he tells you exactly how to do it. So for those of us who like specific directions, it's pretty specific. What do I truly want? And observe the images that come without judgment. That will be your first practice, is actually doing it without judgment. Because we tend to judge incessantly. That's the controller that he's talking about. It's like the guard at the moat that will let nice thoughts in but won't let the thoughts that you don't like in. Maybe you need to look at the thoughts you don't like because they need to get out of your consciousness. Nonetheless, and for those of us who beat ourselves up about that egoic controller, we only adopted the one everybody else is working with. And then we gave it our own personality and we says it's mine. We adopted what the minister said, what the teacher said, what our parents said. Because if you guys remember, you come in as a baby, you don't have any awareness. We just start sucking it in. And at that age, you don't have the discernment to go, that doesn't make sense. You just take it all. And before you know it, you call it yourself. And off we go. So what is it you truly want? It can be pretty disturbing when you ask that question and there's just dead silence. Someone who was here earlier during this lesson talked about why doesn't anything come? Because there's great fear to actually hearing the answers. That's why it doesn't come. So how can you be more open and more open and more open? What will happen as you do this process, what do I truly want? What that I represents to your being will shift. And that will be the measure of your actual growth, what the I means to you. And when the I becomes the big I rather than the little one with a dot on it, the big I won't be talking about needing more things in the world. That's the little I that's kind of doing that. But those aren't bad desires. Sometimes we need to play those out. If we don't play them out and you don't run that desire out and realize, shit, this is another dead end. God's not behind money. God's not behind boats. God's not behind a new wife. But sometimes the mind is so convinced that if I could just get more money, everything will be perfect. So you may need to get more money and realize, you know what, I'm still unhappy. The money didn't change anything. So anyway, don't be fearful of them. Let them play themselves out. If not, you're going to cycle back around until you run every one of those out.
I saw the image of having 47 sexual partners. I saw the image of having golden coins rain down on me so that I had to have an umbrella over my head. I saw huge bowls of ice cream. I saw myself in a boat on the ocean. Whatever it is, write it down. I noticed that my stomach got tight. I thought I was going to pee my pants. Whatever it is, write it down. Then take a deep breath, relax again, and repeat the process. Place the hand so that it rests on the heart. Breathe in a few times and then ask, what do I truly desire? And again, allow the process to be what it is. Do this over a period of 10 or 15 minutes so that you repeat the process at least 6 or 7 times, writing them down.
So he's asking us to close our eyes and kind of come inward and just listen and then open and write. He's not saying write as they fly out of your mind. He's really trying to cultivate a practice of the symbol of closing off the world and looking within. And I just love that he does it. He's already throwing the first one up there that we would probably feel guilty about. So he's throwing it out there and say, see, it's not a big deal if this comes. No need to judge it. He's not judging it. I was never into numerology, but I bet 47 has some significance. I wouldn't be past Jeshua to sneak another kind of thing in there. But it's really about opening up and letting it happen. And he's making the point, don't just do it on the level of thought. Try and capture what your feeling experience is. Sometimes that's much more accurate than your thoughts. The thoughts lie to you like crazy. It's hard to deny what's happening in the body. The body's a much more accurate representation. That's why that kinesthetic thing of power versus force works. Because your mind will lie, but your body's going to express usually what's true. So there it is. That's not asking a lot, really, is it? It's up to you. Do it or not.
I'm sorry, dear. We've got to get a vehicle out. And I have to ask 2 people to move their cars.
Okay, well, we'll just take an intermission.
Okay, a silver Prius and a silver Kia.
During the break, I could feel some energy out there around, I know what it is I want. What if you did the exercise? Maybe there's something that love would share with you that you aren't currently aware of. Maybe you can actually listen instead of thinking you already know. So I'm not quite sure who that is, but I can feel that energy. I know. Okay, thank you, Jay. Thank you, Jay. He's going to talk about, at the end of this lesson, undressing in front of another, and that was a beautiful example Jay set for us. Not literally, unless you choose to. I'm not in on that. So be willing to do it. Because he's asking you to ask a question and then listen, not ask the question and then keep talking all your answers. There's a huge difference. When you become a listener in your consciousness rather than the talker, magnificent transformation can happen. But you have to be willing to shut up and listen. And it won't take long if you do it authentically, where you'll recognize, I'm hearing a voice that I would not attribute to my own past experience. Something outside of me seems to be informing me. So when you ask this question, what is it I truly want? If you can kind of then take a step back into a spaciousness rather than your own kind of little experience, that's just kind of opening the door to love and going, okay, I'm asking this question to all of what is it I truly want? So there we go. Okay, honey.
Take the piece of paper, perhaps in a journal, as you would call it, and put it aside into the next exercise period, and then again repeat the process. When you have done this 7 times, so that you have 7 sheets of paper in which you've gone through this process, then, and only then, begin to look back through all the things that came up, and then ask yourself, what seems to be repeating itself? You might notice, well, 3 times I wanted a huge bowl of ice cream, but then it seemed to fade away. Twice I had a desire for 47 lovers, but now I notice that I'm really only wanting 1.
So like Jeshua, this lesson is teaching you other things than simply opening to desire. It's teaching you to follow some directions and allow the stuff to come and then set it aside and not engage in evaluation of all of it. He's asking you to kind of let things be. And you don't have to give it all meaning. Allow the experience to come and then set it aside. Don't keep experiencing it once you've done the exercise. So he's saying then and only then go back and begin to look through it. So there's beautiful spiritual teachings hidden in the lessons if you'll actually do them. And you can look at your desire to evaluate it, to start crossing off ones you don't like. He's saying don't do that. That's kind of going to encumber the process. He's just wanting you to truly let all of it come out. Sift through it later. So resist the temptation to evaluate right when you're finished.
Whatever it might be, notice the pattern, the thread, that seems to run the most throughout the exercise periods. Then imagine that thread to be that energetic link that is tied at one end to the piece of foam at the edge of the wave, and the other is anchored to the depth of the ocean. And then consider that perhaps if you allowed yourself to move down that thread, to begin to put your energy on that, to begin to clear up the obstacles within your consciousness that block that desire from being consistently lived from, that by so doing you would carry yourself from the drop of foam at the edge of the wave to the heart of God, and that along the way everything unlike love would come up for you to release it, and that during the process you would go through a metamorphosis that would culminate in your being the living incarnation of the power of Christ, that your soul would realize the fulfillment that it has always sought. Something to take a big gulp over. For you see, the reason you have cleverly decided to trick yourself into blocking the energy of desire is that the soul knows that were it to follow such a thread through whole and total commitment, it would be embarking on the pathway we spoke of in an earlier hour, the pathway set before you by God that knows how to take you home.
So whatever's on that list that consistently makes it through 7, that very well may be God saying, follow this desire and it's going to help bring you home. So if it's on there 7 times, I would be willing to step forward boldly with confidence on that desire. But he's saying to live from that desire consistently. He's not talking about a momentary experience like, oh, skydiving was on there 12 or all 7. Well, great, you can go have a skydiving experience, but maybe there's some energy behind that. Maybe a willingness to allow energy to move through you, to have a fun, exciting life. Maybe that's the energy, but he's asking you to live from that, not just to have a temporary experience. And that this will culminate in you being the living incarnation of the power of Christ. I don't know, he set a pretty high bar for the power of Christ, did he not? That each and every one of us in here are his absolute perfect equal in that regard. I don't know about you, but I think the world would do with a bunch of Christs of that level, that caliber, incarnated on this planet. Can you imagine? On every continent, hundreds of Christs performing healing miracles. Whew, that would be big time. So he's making the point that this isn't just about you waking up and being a happy little ego. This is about you accepting your full inheritance as the child of God. So you're welcome to walk this path and just be a happy separate self. That's okay too. But he's offering you a pathway to the whole enchilada, the whole stinking kingdom. And of course, we take a big gulp over it. We're like, ooh, we don't know, your mind deeply believes I'm not worthy of that. I can't, God wouldn't perform those kind of miracles through me. And remember, it wasn't Jeshua performing the miracles. It's not a separated ego that does that. When that's out of the way, miraculous things can start to pour through you. And you just get what's cool about it is you get a front row seat to Miracle Central. And you see them day after day after day. It's really a lot of fun. But there's beauty in this last paragraph, for you see the reason you have cleverly decided to trick yourself, your incarnation in this realm was not an accident. It wasn't God punishing you. You tricked yourself by pulling the wool over your eyes and then hitting the 3D button. Nobody did it to you. But why we cleverly decided to block the desire of energy, because your soul knows if it truly wakes up, it can't even have a hope of having a separate experience. There's no hope in it, because it'll know what it is, that it's infinite and that it's all that is, and you won't be able to have that experience. But I can assure you, if you're in this room or you're watching it, no soul even hears about awakening until you have checked off everything in the third dimension you would have done. We don't come to awakening until we've finished our experience. It's ridiculous how much we suffer in the last little stretch home. But you've already completed you don't need to suffer anymore. You don't need to have any more loss. If you're at this stage, just get on about waking up. And it doesn't have to be hard, and it need not take long. But of course in Miracles, which is the kind of first of this pathway, he asks for a little bit of willingness, just a wee bit. To become Christ, he's talking whole and total commitment. It's no longer dabbling. It's no longer, I like the idea of heaven on earth and being able to have all my individual abundance. We're talking all in and the total, absolute, unequivocal surrender of a separate self. Now that can be experienced joyfully when you know what you're accepting is the kingdom and your inheritance. Or if you want to look at it from the ego point of view, it can feel like death and suffering and wow, that's just not really the way to go about it. But anyway, the whole kingdom is yours because it's your inheritance. The truth is it's yours right now. We're using the power of Christ to deceive ourselves that we're not it. So you're already doing Christ, but you're doing it for a separated experience. And I can assure you, each and every one of us here did ego perfectly. Absolutely perfectly. Do you know how much power and mastery it takes to pull that off? What if you simply repurposed your being and all that power got put into the power of Christ? It wouldn't take you long, I assure you, because the power is infinite.
And if you arrive at home, it will mean that you will have had to give up being a seeker, and you will have to have become one who is found. And you will have to rise above the crowd. You will have to give up all of your identity with smallness. You will have to give up needing the approval of others. You will have left the nest of insanity. You will have arisen and taken up your right place at the right hand of God. Isn't that the deepest fear you carry? To actually be the truth of who you are. Christ incarnate. Now, desire can be much fun. Ideally, once you've practiced this on your own, ask your mate or a close friend, you may even want to show them this talk on your video, and ask a friend if they would be willing to embark on this process with you, so that perhaps once a week you can sit down together and say, "What did you come up with this week?" Well, here goes. It's called undressing in front of a friend. It's called becoming vulnerable with one another. It's called finding another child to play with in the kingdom so that you can go to the sandbox away from the adult world that says desire is bad. You guys be careful.
We pray to smallness every day. We have hospitals full of the altar of smallness and the altar of sickness and the altar of death. We pray to it all the time. It's not bad. That was the point of this incarnation, of expressing in this realm. But you have to give up, oh, I'm just small. And we have to stop seeking. Stop, oh, I heard of a new channeling. I got to run get that. Like there's something outside of you that's going to show you what you are inside. Eventually, you're going to turn within, and the only thing you will do is your own teaching direct from the source, your own self-realization. But look at the energy behind that grasping and that seeking. Of course, first you have to deny the truth to even seek. But boy, we make professionalism out of seeking, and we get really proud about our spiritual egos. It's it's something to see. So recognize we have to get rid of the smallness. In the Course in Miracles, he says the fourth obstacle to peace is the fear of God. Many people read that and think, I fear that God's going to judge me or punish me. No, the fear is, oh shit, it's me. And look what I did with my power. Oh my God, that must be horrible. That must be bad. You mean I'm that powerful, I'm all that is? That's what we fear, not that God's outside of us and going to judge us, but that it's us. And look what we did with it in humanity. It's not a problem unless you recognize if you think that's what reality is. I'm going to have a dialogue on Friday where I'm going to use a beautiful symbol about Christ's vision to help kind of clarify that for you. But whew, Christ incarnate. You're all Christ incarnate right now. You're just incarnating I'm not Christ. So it's not so much about doing anything else. It's really about stopping denying what the truth of you is. And you don't need to do anything to become what God created you as. You need to stop the denial. And every thought that crosses your consciousness, oh, I'm not worthy, you're just throwing the heaven out the window with that. Oh, this is going to take forever, throwing heaven out the window. And our egos can be very clever and subtle in our denials and justify them till the cows come home. People come to sit with me and they'll say something, I'm like, did you hear what you said? What would your experience have to be like if that's your belief? And you want to wake up and you're holding that belief so cherished? You got to throw all that stuff out. I mean, finally, Jeshua had me convinced I could just throw it all out, and if there was anything good, I could trust him to put it back. I gave up trying to discern it. I just went all in and trusted him. Trusted God, trusted love, trusted my soul, trusted the truth, rather than the little tiny ego mind being, oh, I don't know, I kind of need this, all that kind of stuff. Whew. So Jay, thank you for undressing with us and saying the truth of what was on your mind. This can be really liberating. It can be really liberating when you can actually express that desire to another being who's not going to judge you for it. It's really a powerful experience. And you, as that one, if you're the one they're saying their stuff, you get to practice holding unconditional love in an environment where they can do it. Because you're going to turn around and do it. Finding another kid to play in the kingdom. You know what? Look around. Look in your experience, your family, and your life. How many kids are your friends that are playing smallness? What if you found one kid that you could truly play bigness with? Wouldn't that be cool? Marion and I get together with a group on Thursday and we play Christy big, don't we? And it is fun. Oh my gosh, it's so much fun. So be willing to do that because it also drops the fear barrier of the ego that tries to keep an individuated experience. So enjoy that, getting naked in front of your friends.
And you begin to look at what is true and real from a place of innocence. And you begin to create for yourself a support group. And that support group perhaps can grow to 3 or 4 friends or even 10 or 20, in which everyone is involved in getting in touch with what's really in there by understanding the principle that desire is the thread that links your soul to the heart of God. And God wants only to extend through you that which expresses love in the world. It is called creation. Perhaps.
Hold on a second. I'm going to do that paragraph if you don't mind. You begin to look at what is true and real from a place of innocence. That is the only place you will ever know truth. It's from a place of innocence. If you are standing in a place of judgment, I guarantee you, you're nowhere near the truth. The only way you will ever, ever, ever recognize truth is from a place of innocence. And if you can just cultivate a place of innocence, you're making quantum leaps in your own awakening. But it's about that place of innocence. Because then there's no judgment, there's no guilt, there's just perfect allowance. He'll talk about it later in this pathway. Love allows all things, trusts all things, and embraces all things. Love doesn't judge anything. If you're standing in that judgment, know that you've got a concept of the Creator that has to be a judger. So you justify your fear of the Creator because of your own judgments. There's no judgment there. Look in this room. You got a support group right here. Those of you who think you're walking your path by yourself, look around. I bet you there's somebody in this room that would come get naked with you. You in, honey? I'm wearing one thing. Go ahead.
Perhaps a worthwhile project. For when you do not turn to allow the embrace of desire, there is only one alternative. It is to live in mere survival. And when you choose the energy of mere survival, the world is your master, before which you will be made to bow again and again and again and again and again, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. You will be a slave to the insanity that seems to rule this world, and you will never know peace, and you will never know joy, and you will never come home, plain and simple. For you were not created to wither and die on the vine. You were made to bear forth much good fruit.
I'm going to go back to paragraph 1 for a second. God wants only to extend through you that which expresses love in the world. He's not asking you to suffer. He's not asking you to sacrifice. He's not asking you to take a bunch of people's shit. He's not asking any of that. All He wants to do is express the power, the love of creation through you. Abundantly, joyfully. And when He repeats Himself in this pathway, He's really trying to make a point. And in this paragraph, He repeats Himself more than any other paragraph in the whole pathway. You have made the survival your master. So the body is always concerned about survival. Your mind is always seeking to give meaning. All that your soul wants to do is recline in God and rest. So if you can look at what your primary energy is, and you'll be able to see where in that where are you identified. If it's all about survival, you've put this on the top of the heap. If it's all about trying to figure all this spirituality out and put meaning on things and discern, well, then you're right here. But end up in your soul where there are no frigging questions. That's why there's peace. That's why the silence is, because the questioner shuts up. The questioner goes away. And all of a sudden there's just nothing but beautiful clarity. So it's perhaps a worthwhile project. He's not saying you have to do it. He's not going to judge you if you don't. He's saying perhaps it's worthwhile. The choice and decision is yours. God's not like, Stephen, come on, dude. But anyway, you'll be made to bow how many agains? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 agains, and then lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. When He showed me, I didn't really want to see them all. He just kind of showed me a number, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. It took me that long to get to the place of surrender. So if you have this pathway in your hands, you've got the roadmap, for God's sakes. Will you walk it this lifetime, or will you simply entertain it and have to come back and waste another 20 years as a kid before you finally get serious? Or 60. Yeah, whatever. So perhaps this would be a good thing. And if it's about survival, you're a slave to the insanity that rules the world. And that's what rules this world. People say love makes the world go round. It's guilt and fear that makes this world go round. I mean, if love made the world go round, the news would have a whole different story on it. If love made the world go round when it snows, everybody wouldn't rush to Ingalls because they're concerned about their survival. So just look at your life, how much energy is related to survival. When you awaken, you'll know the truth of your being, and you'll be at peace, because whether the body survives or not won't be such a big deal. You're happy to use it while it still works, and you'll express love and light through it, and when its time is done, you'll lay it aside like a toy you're finished with. Imagine the peace that is. It's beautiful. It's the only way to truly live. So you'll never know peace, you'll never know joy, and you will never come home, plain and simple. Never's a long friggin' time. Many of us have been at this already a long friggin' time. He's not saying you'll never come home, but He's saying if you continue to worship at the world's altar, that's not the way that's going to get you home. You've got to turn away, and I don't mean turn away from the world like it's bad. Simply stop playing the game. Turn within and find the truth that was within. The world's not bad. Nothing's wrong with the world. It's doing exactly what we asked it to do and what we're creating in it right now. We're doing it all to ourselves. So you weren't created to die and wither on the vine. Now, however many times you've chosen to do that, you were made to bear good fruit. That's cool. I want to be like a tree in his orchard. And then everyone can come and have sustenance, enjoy. Go ahead, honey.
Let the roots be watered by desiring, above all things, to become the fulfillment of what God had in mind when He breathed into you the breath of life. And let that breath be received in each moment. You will come to see that the only question you need be preoccupied with is this: how much of God am I willing to receive and allow to be expressed through me?
So chances are, if you do these exercises, that's not what's going to come up on your list. So pretty much everything that comes up on your list is what your body mind has suggested are idols that's more important than this. So answer this question within your own being. How much of God am I willing to receive and allow to be expressed through me? I mean, I can feel like a desire for a test drive first before we really go all in. But this is really what it's about. Because God will not express through you any more than you're willing to allow. And recognize that even at that stage about letting God in, the ego's still going, ooh, I'm in charge of how much God gets in and how much doesn't. Fire the ego. Get it out of that role. And simply take it all. I mean, challenge God to come up with more because you're willing to accept all of it. I know that's what Jeshua did. So, how much of God are you willing to receive and allow to be expressed through you? The beauty of that is you get to receive it. You get to dwell in it. You get to wallow in that joy and in that peace. And by the way, the giving of it will become this effortless, joyful thing. You won't even really have to do it. It kind of does itself. You know, He doesn't ask us, how much of God do you think God desires to express through you? God's choice is already all in when He created us as His extension. We had to answer this question very, very little in order to play separation. All He's asking us to do is stop the game, drop the ego, and open. Many times the ego wants to create what God is. That's already done. Let the Creator create through you. Let the doer that's the ego just disappear into the nothingness from which it came.
It is called the separating of the wheat from the chaff. The chaff are the thinkings of the world that would have you believe in smallness. This can only result in your perpetual suffering. The wheat is the food that gives life because it is filled with the love of God. Fear not, then, desire, but desire to embrace desire. Touch it, feel it, know it, dance with it, sing with it, look at it innocently, feel it wholly, and then learn to discern through the ways we've given you what desire is truly. That thread that's shining forth through all of your days, and then decide to let that desire inform your choices so that you create a life that serves the fulfillment of that thread of desire.
Stop there. I love the way in this pathway He kind of throws in some of His things from 2,000 years ago and clarifies us for them. I bet many of you were taught separating the wheat from the chaff was separating the good from the bad, and left you as the determiner of truth. It's bigness, it's godness versus tiny body-mind ego-ness. He's asking you to separate. The fruit is in your infiniteness, not in your tiny finiteness. That's the chaff. Look within your consciousness. What's running through there all day? The eye that's thinking in there is the chaff. It's not the wheat. So he's really asking you to open your consciousness and correct the teaching that's been way mistreated in the world. Now he said 2,000 years ago, I speak to you in parables, but the time will come when I speak to you directly and clearly. Bam! There's the second coming right there. He's speaking to us directly and clearly. So much that, this is the transcript. You actually get to hear his voice. He's not obscuring the truth anymore. That was as much as he could get out in a consciousness 2,000 years ago that was deeply rooted in fear. He's channeling through 2,000 people on this planet right now. The second coming is here and now, and he's giving it to us as straight as he can. Isn't that cool? So fear not, then desire and embrace it. Touch it, feel it, know it, dance with it, sing with it, look at it innocently. He said at the very first of this lesson, if God was scared of desire, none of us and none of this would exist. So desire is God ordained and God authorized. We even used it to say, what would it be like to run away from home and play separate? Isn't it cool that our Creator says, sure, go knock yourself out. Have a good time. Here's your full inheritance. You can go create a full cosmos and create a body so that you seem infinitely small. That's big love. That's friggin' cool. And then allow this desire that starts to well up from the base of the ocean inform your every choice, your every desire. Are you willing to take your preferences that were learned in the world through a body mind of survival and ditch them and allow love to start expressing through you? Do you think love's worried about not having food the next day? Shit, love's creating all the food. It'll bring it to you. It's not, it's the whole thing that's happening. So he talks about this in A Course in Miracles about, I will make no decisions by myself. It's about opening and letting the voice for God, the Holy Spirit, your higher self, your Antareyaman, your Aunt Mary, whatever you want to say your guide is or your higher self is, to inform your choices. A greater wisdom, an infinite wisdom, not the tiny little consciousness that you had that had a separated experience. Do you really want to pick from your tiny consciousness when love's offering you the full Monty? It's kind of like you think you know everything versus the internet. But how often are we willing to just ask Google? Haven't we already gotten good? And what is the internet but really a symbol of the mind of God? You can ask a question and bam, you get an answer. So we allow that with Google. Why wouldn't we turn that symbol to the truth and allow that to happen within our consciousness with God? Because that's really what the internet is. It's just a collection of intelligence, knowledge. It's kind of like the mind of God. But you don't need a computer interface. You are the interface. You are that mind. You are one with that. You can open up within to that not a single question you would have would not be answered directly within. So look at all the times you go to Google something. Wow, maybe that would be a practice to start turning within. Because you have a belief that it has to be a technology interface. That's a handicap. That's the chaff. That's the smallness. Cool stuff. Okay, Cindy, please go ahead.
You see, I had to do the same, for I began to notice that there was a thread of desire in my heart to create some form of demonstration that would be so overwhelming that anyone who turned their attention to it could not help but be reminded that there is something far greater to life than living to survive and surviving just to live. And even when I was young, I began to get glimpses. At first they were fleeting. Something was compelling me. But as I learned to trust desire, the pictures became clearer and clearer. I saw myself standing on hilltops, surrounded by multitudes, and I marveled at the words that came through my mouth in these moments of revelation when I was still but a teenager. I saw glimpses and pictures of being loved by millions. I saw pictures and things that I couldn't even comprehend because they were literally pictures of what I'm doing now. And how could a teenager living in Judea 2,000 years ago have any way of comprehending the use of the technologies of your modern world in which to communicate love? It made no sense to me, but still, I decided to trust it.
And oh my God, am I glad he did. Where would we be if he hadn't have had the courage to follow the desire that told him everything different than what the world told him? Where would we be if he hadn't have followed God's desire to say, come, son, come home. And by the way, please create a demonstration that shows everyone else death isn't real. I mean, you recognize the courage, the willingness that it took a body mind to do that? And he's saying he had to do the same thing. He's trying to dispel this belief that like he incarnated as God, like already enlightened. He had to wake up just like the rest of us. This is the pathway he took to that. So I'm eternally grateful to him. And it's clear, he made it very clear to me when he said, now you're going to go and teach as I taught. I was like, dude, it didn't work out good for you. You know. I'm like, and he said, clearly we're past that. 100 years ago, this might have had to have been done in secret. Now Kelly's got a website putting love out there. It's happening all over the world, so we don't have to worry about persecution anymore because he was willing to follow that thread of desire. And when you truly open to it, love's not going to hide its intention for you. Love's going to show it to you. When he started showing me images about this work, I was like, I don't even have some of this furniture. Where's that going to come from? But, So you'll begin to get them if you truly want to follow that thread of desire rather than relying on your own separated consciousness. And the words, he marvels at the words. I go and edit these things sometimes and I'm in shock. I don't remember it when it's finished. I see them and I'm like, holy cow, that's cool. And I'm going to watch this and go, wow, it's like Echo or something. Anyway. He decided to trust it. That's really the important point. And if you look within your own egoic consciousness, you don't trust yourself anyway. You don't. Maybe it's worth trusting God. Maybe. Or you're just going to operate on your own already distrusting consciousness. You're being offered a great alternative, a divine alternative.
A part of that thread was the recognition that death is unreal. And so therefore, I ought to be able to create a demonstration that would prove it. Now think about that for a moment. If that thought was born in you, and you tried to share it with the world, wouldn't you be told you were crazy to dare to think a thought so out of line with everything the world believes? But because I followed the thread of desire, I began to realize that it kept speaking to me day after day, week after week. It wanted to grow. It wanted to be nurtured. So finally I decided I am going to allow that thread to be nurtured, and I'm going to discover where it takes me and what it's all about. And where it took me was into mastery of life and death, mastery of healing, mastery of consciousness. It took me into mastery of myself, and it brought me home to my own Christed beingness.
So he didn't come to save us from our sins. I mean, a sin is nothing but our misperception about who we are. It's not that you've done anything bad. But, I mean, can you imagine just the amount of love that it took to follow that desire, the amount of trust that it took? We're not asking to do that. He's already shown us, hey, it's okay, bam, I'm back, do you see? The only thing we're really being asked to sacrifice is death and guilt and fear and smallness. Is that really too much to ask? Mastery of life and death, healing, and a mastery of consciousness itself. You want peace? That's friggin' peace. You want to help your brothers? What if you woke up and you could actually heal them rather than going and taking flowers? The point of what you can do as a Christed being is infinitely greater than the grandest thing the ego could ever do. Ever. So just look at where you put your energy and time. Is it into this process of truly awakening to that Christ self and inviting all the power of love that could flow through you and heal someone instantly? And the water to wine probably wasn't a bad gig either. Or is it still we're worshiping the chaff and ignoring the wheat? You each have to look within your own consciousness. It's very tempting. The ego's going to look within and go, shit, I'm guilty of that, and want to beat you up. Don't let it beat you up. Recognize, oh, great, I see that pattern. I can choose again. And rejoice rather than beat yourself up. So, thank you to Jeshua for following that thread of desire. I'm grateful. Mark's back there. He's grateful.
Because I followed that thread, I can talk with you today. There are many of you that appreciate what I have done because you see me as a spokesperson for the truth. Is it not time that you followed your own thread and became likewise a spokesperson for reality? For just as you have been sent to me, there will be many sent to you as you step from being a seeker to a finder. For as you take up your right place, you become a vehicle through which the voice for God will creatively touch the lives of countless persons that you may never, ever meet physically. You were birthed to be grand. You were birthed for greatness. You were birthed to shine forth such light into this world that the world remembers that light is true and darkness is illusion. Be you therefore that which you are. You are the light of the world, and I will delight in journeying with you. For if I can join with this, my beloved brother, to create communication, so too can I join with anyone who chooses to step into their own Christedness. And the thread is the thread of desire. Therefore, begin to turn toward the energy of desire within yourself, to separate the wheat from the chaff, by first learning to feel it for just a minute without judging it, and then to deepen that process. And I tell you, you will reach the point where, with every breath you breathe, you are in touch with the energy of desire, and that is the only voice that you will give authority to.
When he said it's time for me to take the rightful place and be a spokesperson for the truth, whew, and I am so grateful that he's helped me all the way. These videos get watched all over the world. They've been watched on every continent except Antarctica. I got a donation the other day from Brazil, the United Kingdom, and Australia in one day. I'm the living proof that incarnating Christ need not be hard, it need not be painful, it's not embarrassing, and you can impact many, many, many lives. And you're impacting them just with the raising of your consciousness. Not even if you have to do something like this, and you don't have to do this, I do this because it's joyful, and put it out on the internet. But you first have to claim your inheritance. Isn't that the greatest gift you give anyone, by saying, I am as you are? Not as a separate ego, but as the holy child of God. It's a great gig. Try it. Really, authentically try it. But you've got to give up seeking. And he says, maybe it was in the previous slide, to be found, not that you have found. There's a big difference. The ego is not going to find the truth. It wants to desperately. It thinks that's its eternal life. The truth that you are will find you, and the ego will be nowhere to be found in that expression. So how might love create you, extend you as the voice of God? Marion got a seat in this chair and did a beautiful job. Thank you for stepping into your Christedness. Any of the rest of you are welcome to this seat. This seat's not about me, it's about the one of us who's waking up. So you were birthed to be grand and birthed for greatness. Boy, if you're on a spiritual path and you're really keen on the ego, that being grand, oh, that's egoic. Shit, I can't be grand. It's just another way the ego's trying to suppress your natural tendency to be what you are. Jeshua didn't have any problem about being grand. Greatness and grandness. You can be the one that helps to shine the light in the world so that light wakes up and realizes only light is truth. Only consciousness is truth. Only God, love, whatever you want to call it, is true. And I don't do this work alone. He'll join with you in the creation of it. You're not on your separate own to create it. I mean, we have not advertised this stuff a lick. We print a couple of flyers. How do people in Australia find out about that? How does somebody in Brazil find out? I don't know. He takes care of all that. I mean, you've got God doing the marketing, God doing the expression, God doing the listening. It's guaranteed success. You can't get it wrong. So turn toward the energy of desire. And when you truly get the voice for God, and all of you have heard it at one point, you've heard beautiful clarity in your consciousness, but then our other voice tries to impersonate that and we find ourselves confused again. But you will come to discern that voice very, very clearly. And it is the only one you will follow, because it's the only one that offers you love. It's the only one that offers you joy. It's the only one that truly offers you peace. Whew. The thread of desire. Almost done.
And you won't be able to keep up with the loving creation that wants to express through you. And you will marvel at the friends that come into your life, how your external solar system in which your planet is spinning changes. You will marvel and wonder how it's all happening. And you will finally discover that you are not the maker and doer of your life, that God wants to direct and make life through you. And then you will know the truth that sets you free. Of myself I do nothing, but my Father through me does all things, and it is very good. Be you therefore at peace, and desire well. For when you feel desire, you are watering your roots with the energy of life itself. Trust it, embrace it, and let the petals of the rose blossom within your holy being. We love you, and we are with you. If you could only see how much enlightened help there is surrounding you at any moment, you would never allow the fear of going astray with your desire to be victorious within your mind. And you would step forth with boldness, and all things would be made new again. How much of God's love are you willing to receive? And with that, we close by saying, Amen.
Thanks, honey. There's one person in this room that I knew before my own awakening, and that was Cindy. So welcome to my beautiful new friends. Because I was willing to incarnate Christ, accept the truth, even when I didn't believe it. I was willing to take Yeshua's word for it, and he kept showing me it's true, it's true, it's true, it's true. So thank you. It's really, really cool. And it's joyful to not have to do it. I don't have to be responsible for it. I don't have to get it right. I just have to say, yes, Father, what is thy will? Use this body-mind as you wish. Do me in front of everybody. And it is very, very good. So he throws us this last bone for those of us who still have fear about desire. If you could only see how much enlightened help there is surrounding you at any moment, he's not just saying in the moment, he's saying any moment, every moment, you would not have fear of going astray by taking the lid off desire. Let the genie out of the bottle, so to speak. You can't get it wrong. If you're in this room and you're authentically opening that up, I can assure you that love is guiding you in all the perfect ways. Don't fear failure about it. Let it come. Let the wheat express through you. So how much of God's love are you willing to receive? You're worthy of all of it. Do you want to just say, oh, I'll have a crumb on the banquet of the prodigal son? Just a small, he's trying to give you the whole thing. He's trying to give you complete kingdom. The whole divine enchilada. We can't even, with your human consciousness, you can't even conceive how big it is. So don't even try. But are you willing to say, maybe God, I'll take all you'll give me. I don't even want to be the one to try and decide how much. Because you don't even have a clue about what that is. How about just whatever He would give, and He'll give you the whole kingdom. Thank you, honey. I appreciate your help. So next week, we're going to listen to lesson number 5, the keys to the kingdom. And the first one is desire. We got to get off of the desire first base if we're going to come around and score at home. So any questions, comments from anyone tonight? Great. Spirit did a wonderful job. Oh, Mark in the back. We'll be back with the mic. Hold on a second.
Thanks, John Mark.
You're welcome, my friend.
If I have no control, why'd Creator give me free will?
Because we wanted to see what we would do with it. He extended the free will that He has. Clearly, God has free will, so He gave it to us. And we decided in this expression, what would it be like to use that will in opposition to the Creator? I know it sounds insane. It was a really cool idea when we thought it up. Because recognize, in our eternal beingness, we're just about creation. We're about exploration. We're cosmic creators and explorers. And a lifetime in eternity is this. It's like no big deal. It's like entertaining one thought passing your consciousness. So it was a joy to go out and explore. What would it be like? We have infinite number of realms where we're exploring. What would that be like? What would this be like? What would it be like to just be a planet itself? There is no limit on our expressive creative ability. So that free will that we're using, and I need to be very clear, that free will is actually in your Christedness. It's not the free will that is thought to be within the ego. When you set that idea of free will down, then it's what Jeshua refers to as the choiceless choice. You're the channel through which love expresses. The sovereignty of Christ, the sovereignty of the Creator itself expressing through you. So, anyway, that's the deal with free will. But it's really only free if you use it for freedom. Otherwise, you're using it to create your own suffering.
Thank you, John Mark.
You're welcome. My friend.
The point in the what you said before the last one was that I think you missed was you are the light of the world, and that's big. That's huge. That's like being the best damn wave I can possibly be in this ocean.
You bet.
I just wanted to emphasize that.
Well, thank you. And we share that light as one. The light of the world is not individual little tiny light bulbs. It's the one light that we all share with Yeshua in perfect equality. So we're the light of the world. We're the creators of the world. We're the saviors of the world. It's not outside us. I mean, I can assure you there's many, many beings who are watching with great anticipation what humanity and what each and every one of us are going to choose. Because they can't move into your support until you choose. Otherwise, they honor your sovereignty. You're God to them. So they're just going to wait until you say, okay, I need all the enlightened help there is to wake up. And I will accept nothing but all of it. Otherwise, they just say, oh, there's a dreaming child of God, and we're not going to shake them awake. I mean, that's how much honor there is for you now, even in your separated state. You're still perceived as a perfect aspect of the Creator by every guide. So they can't help you unless you ask. I asked Jeshua, and he said, dude, I'm all in. Walked me right out. He's offering you the same option. Will you take his hand? And by the way, he'll make very clear if your guide is not Jesus, your guide is just as good as Jesus. It's not like there's any hierarchy of guides. You know, Kuan Yin or whatever else, they're all perfectly equal on that Christed level. So work with what you have. Don't think you got to throw your guide out because now Jesus has come to the party. He would simply turn you back to your guide. And each and every one of you have them. So be willing to open. Don't think you have to do this on your own. Welcome their help. Why not? We screwed it up doing it by ourselves. We can get a lot of help. Okay, love offering. When Jeshua said, go forth and give as I have given to you, he didn't bill me. He gave me everything, and it cost me nothing. So I extend this to you free because it was given to me free. How can I charge you for what you already are? I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. But, you know, in the world, there's still bills to pay. So I extend to you this love and allow you to go to your guide. You pick the number that is right. There's a basket on the other side of the fireplace. Give it guilt-free, please. Unless you're working on, like, lack of abundance, and then give everything you have and go to your guide and say, okay, what do I do? No, I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing. I'm teasing. So if you're watching online or you're going to watch this later, if you go to the One Who Wakes website, there's a little give button in the upper right-hand corner. You can click that, and international donations are welcome as well. There's a little converter on there that will convert it from your currency into English. So thank you to Jeshua for this pathway and for his, it seemed like courage at the time, and I know oftentimes we feel like a lack of courage. I am so grateful to him and all the other beings who have walked this pathway to Christness. He's not the one. We're all the one. And we're walking the same pathway that all Christed beings have walked. So it was very, very narrow at one time. It's getting wider as more of us walk it. But anyway, I'm grateful to the beings who come in support of this work. And I'm grateful to you beings because that's why there is this work. We love you with an absolutely infinite love and a perfect, perfect peace. Blessings and good night. And we'd love hugs on the way out.